Hey everybody, it's Chad with Nobody Else's Auto. It is 7 o'clock Tuesday evening, time for Toy Tuesday. We are live, so we're going to give everybody a few seconds to get their notifications, to get jumped on with us, and then we're going to start checking out some cool stuff that I brought home from the Money Chevrolet auction in Hill City, Kansas a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, the Money Chevrolet dealership, it was a dealership in northwest Kansas, been out there for years and years, and finally sold it off, and they had an auction right at the end of May to finish selling off some of the stuff that was left in the dealership. So didn't have a ton of super cool stuff, but they did still have some cool stuff, a few new stock parts, but not a lot left. So, but like I said, we still managed to pick up some cool stuff, so that's what we're going to check out tonight. We'll go ahead and flip the camera around, and we'll start checking some of this stuff out. Of course, we always end up bringing some cans home. Some of these cans, we bought this whole big box of cans. Some of them were kind of, you know, plain stuff, Band-Aids and things like that, but really cool old stuff. Old tobacco tins, medicated powder with a horse on it. Even an old steel V8 can. But the reason we bought this box is there was a super cool can in here that we had to pick up, and it was in this box. This is the one we were going after. GM approved accessories auto wax. Great can, did not have anything like this, was super excited to get this. So this was in this box with all these other cool old metal cans, but that's the one we were going after. Had the big banner on it, great looking piece, General Motors Parts Division on the back. Like I said, didn't have anything like that, so was really glad to get a hold of that one. As well as this can too, the GM polishing cloth. This one we do have. This one, not an extremely rare can, but these are still a great can with good graphics. Lee from New York's on, glad you made it. Robert's on, glad you guys made it with us tonight. So anyway, there's a few of the cans that we picked up. Like I said, we bought the whole box to get them, but the GM Auto Wax, I love that can. A couple other cans that we bought individually, and these don't seem to be that exciting, but they kind of are. They're piston rings. They're little round piston ring canisters. We've got a pair of them, different heights, pretty good graphics. Number one is the Karate Kid episode, Wax On, Wax Off. I don't know. I don't think this stuff sounds kind of chunky. I don't know how well it's going to wax, but it's a great can. But picked up these piston ring cans, still sealed, brand new. You know, pretty decent graphics on them, especially considering their age. William's on with us. Glad you made it, William. Copyright 1935, GM Parts Corporation. I don't remember. Yeah, this one's dated also. These are both dated 1935. Pretty good graphics for the time. Dan from Defiance is on. Glad you made it, Dan. But really cool. GM stamped right on the top. Pennsylvania's on with us. Glad you made it tonight. Robert likes them too. Yeah. Like I said, these were, you know, at first glance, kind of a plain looking can, but dated in the mid-30s, cool graphics, and the GM stamp right on the top definitely stood out. So those are some of the cans that we brought back to add to our collection. And like I said, always glad to add cool new cans to our stuff. Another small sign that I bought, and this is plastic, probably 70s era. America's First Choice by margin of millions. Not a huge sign, but a great sign. The cool red, white, and blue bow tie. So there again, this is plastic, so I'm guessing probably 70s. But one thing about it is this plastic stuff is not going to survive like a lot of that older stuff has. Which brings us to the bigger signs we've got here in the back, the Detroit diesel signs. These are 48-inch plastic Detroit diesel signs with the logo on them. I've got a pair of them. Super cool signs. And once again, these are plastic. A lot of people don't look at the plastic signs and hold them in the regard that they do the porcelain. And typically they are not as cool and as fancy as the porcelain signs. But guess what? This stuff is not going to survive. So I really don't have any problem picking up plastic signs like this, especially cool ones with good logos on them. So there's some more of the stuff we picked up there. We'll go over here and check out a few more things. Picked up a whole couple big stacks of new old stock Caprice hubcaps, for one thing. But something else I got a whole slug of were these dealership posters. And got a ton of cool ones and got a pretty good mixture of them. You know, Caprice Sedan. There's so many of them, there's no way we're going to get through all these. We're going to check out a couple of them. 76 Caprice Sports Sedan. These old 70 Chevys are getting super hot. Was really kind of excited about this piece. Lots of Camaro stuff. Those come off a lit sign. Yes, the Detroit diesel would have been backlit. They are plastic, double-sided. They would have been in a frame and been backlit, so they would have lit up. You know, lots of Camaro posters, third-gen Camaro, more third-gen stuff, fourth-gen stuff. Like I said, just a really wide variety of these posters. They had a slug of them. I just bought some of them. But these, you know, I love these things because they are old factory stuff. 83 Celebrity. When's the last time you saw one of those? Cavalier stuff. Now, Nick says second gen's the best gen. Well, I do like second gen stuff too, but I also like third and fourth. You know, some of this Cavalier stuff, it may not seem too exciting, but there is some Z24 Cavalier stuff in here. Z34 Luminas, those were a really cool car for their day. Something you don't think a lot about today. The Euro Lumina. Granted, these were no performers, but at least they had a little bit of sportiness to them. Cool wheels. A lot of times they had buckets, console, floor shift. Standard Lumina. There's another Z34 Lumina, even an action shot type deal on that one. More Z34 Luminas. Number one says, every kid in my high school drove a new Sunfire or Cavalier. And that's something that we don't think about. You know, we think about, who wants a Cavalier, things like that, you know, in today's world. But you got to remember, back in the day, they were pretty popular. Just like this one right here. This is a great poster of a Cavalier. Robert says the Trans Am looks like his new 88. Z24 Cavalier Coupes. There again, were they rocket ships? Absolutely not. Were they sporty for what they were for the time? You bet they were. So some of this stuff, like I said, a lot of people kind of overlook it. I think it's pretty cool stuff. And there again, for their time, number one says Z24s actually outsold Z28s, and that's very possible. I've never looked that up, but that would not surprise me one bit. So something to think about. You know, there's more Camaro posters. So just like I said, tons, just a really, really broad scope on what I ended up getting for showroom posters at the auction. But a lot of cool stuff, a lot of neat stuff, you know, more Z24 Cavaliers. And like I said, for the time, you know, when you got to look back, and that's what we do a lot on here, we look back with hindsight. You know, the Celebrity Eurosport. But when we look back with hindsight, even these little Sprints, they even had, you know, the little Sprints. I do not have any Starship Camaro posters. I don't think I got any of those. Turbo Sprint. The little Novas. I think these were a Toyota, import that they just branded a Nova. Caprice Classic. You know, those cars are getting kind of hard to find, a nice one of those. Those, you know, those big old Caprices and Roadmasters, especially the Wagons, getting crazy popular. But there's a, you know, a super good looking old Caprice. And, you know, and another one right there. Those cars are getting hard to find. You know, we've got one right here that's about ready to go down the road to a new home. So there again, we don't necessarily, it's kind of hard to think. We kind of got to reprogram our brains a little bit. These cars are 30 years old. You don't see them anymore. And they're getting kind of tough to find. So even though a lot of, you know, the Cavalier RS, once again, you know, we didn't have a lot of performance in the day, but they were trying to work with what they had. Another Cavalier Z24. The Caprice Classic Wagon. Robert, went to the Detroit Auto Show in the 80s and remember when the Celebrity was new. Yep. You know, there's the Caprice Wagon. The little Chevy Corsicas. This car is I don't think it's a 4.3. I think it's, is it a 5? I think it's a 305. I think is what this Caprice has in it. The one that we just looked at. You know, more Caprices, the old box Caprices. Like I said, just so much stuff that it's kind of hard to think about. But Now this stuff is old. You know, more of the old box Caprices, box Caprice station wagon. Number one, Beretta was my favorite front-wheel drive. There again, those cars were kind of cool. We don't see them anymore. It's hard to find a good one. But there's a lot of people out there that remember this stuff. And the Beretta is another great example. For the time, they were a cool car. They were not a rocket ship. You know, they were not a race car. But they tried to make them sporty. They tried to work with what they had. And that's what a lot of people remember now. There's a Cavalier hatchback. You know, more Caprice wagons. Actually, wagon poster Caprice and Malibu with the G-body Malibu wagon. There's the 92 Camaro poster. Got to keep that one. That goes with my convertible. A few Corvette posters. You know, these had some fading. These must have been hung for a while. The 82 Collector's Edition poster. 82 Camaro. 83 Camaro. And even an Astro van. Classic Ride Society caught us. Glad you made it tonight, Classic Ride Society. So there again, lots of cool stuff. Picked up a few Buick books. A few other posters here that, you know, that are rolled up. Even got a few Trans Am pieces. So a lot of neat stuff. A lot of different stuff that, you know, as crazy it is to think about, is getting old. And a lot of what we do on here, a lot of what we talk about, it is hindsight. You know, we are looking at the past with 20/20 vision now, looking at what's happening. And just like a lot of these posters we just checked out, I like a lot of that stuff. Z24 Cavaliers, they were cool. Z34 Luminas, they were cool. Like I said, there was not a lot of rocket ships back in the day. You know, I still remember when the Viper came out in 92, you know, 400 horsepower out of an American car in 1992. That was craziness. You know, we look at it today with this stuff at 700-800 horsepower and off the showroom floor, and you know, it's nuts. But when after the gas stuff in the 70s and then the 80s and the attempts at performance, obviously the Grand National when they turbocharged it, where they came out with the turbo in 78, but when they intercooled that car in 86, you know, they ran great in 86 and 87. There was a little bit of life with the Fox Body Mustang. When they went to the tune port injection on Corvettes and Camaros, that obviously helped. But in this window that we're looking at, in these 80s and 90s, you know, this stuff was all, you know, it was attempts to get back to style and performance. And that's why I love that stack of posters, because of what that represents. That even though a lot of them weren't fast, they were still trying to make them sporty, even if it was a Cavalier. And just like I believe number one said, he remembers everybody, all of his friends had Sunbirds and Cavaliers. And that's, there again, when we look back, it's a time of what you remember, what you liked, what your friends had, things like that. And this stuff is going to come back around. The problem is none of this stuff got saved. As crazy as it is, I can buy 40s and 50s and 60s cars easier than I can buy 70s or 80s cars. I picked up a car from the 70s today, and I was like super stoked that I had something from the 70s that was coming in. As crazy as that sounds, because this stuff is so hard to find. But like I said, a lot of this stuff got overlooked. A lot of it got crushed. A lot of people said, who's going to want a Cavalier? Who's going to want a Lumina? A lot of this stuff was never saved. Old School is on with us. Glad you made it, Old School. And that's why it's not that I don't even have a problem buying it. I mean, I like buying this stuff from the 80s and 90s. Classic Ride Society just got a 77 one-owner Firebird Formula. Once again, a car that's always been overlooked and overshadowed by the Trans Am. The Formulas were cool cars too. So, Chris is on. Glad you made it, Chris. So, when I look at this stuff, a lot of people may look at this stuff and say, well, it's not porcelain signs. It's not that old. Well, you know, this Chevy sign right here, this America's First Choice, that sign there, it's plastic. It's not dated. But I bet you that sign is 70s. Which means it is at least 40 to 45 years old. Old School, no one wants a Corsica Pontiac 6000. You know, and there's those cars were kind of the fleet type, rental type cars, and not near as well, you know, and they were just kind of used and used up. But there's a lot of people that drove those cars as their first car. There's a lot of people that, that was their friend's first car and the first thing they got to go run around in. So I try to look at it, with a glass half full type outlook on a lot of this stuff that a lot of people shun, because people are still going to have some of those cars. They're still going to like them. You may not necessarily agree with them, but some people are going to like them. And that's one thing that we always have to be concerned or be cognizant of in our hobby. And this is so important. We've touched on it a little bit. We need to do a little deeper dive into some of it. But that high school senior that just graduated last May was born in 2003. So to them, an 89 Camaro is an antique car. An 87 Fox body Mustang, super old car. That's what we need to be cognizant of. We need to be aware that this market is shifting. That's right, Classic Ride Society, early Taurus SHO. Super cool cars, completely overlooked. A lot of people forget about them. Finding a good one today, tough. But a neat car, and for the day, an amazing car. Like Old School says, yeah, there was a butt for every seat. That's what you do in the car world. There is something for everybody, and we need to be cognizant of that. If you go to a cruise night and you see an 18 or 19-year-old kid pull up in a 93 Camaro he's working on, he's just as proud of that as you are of your car, and we need to be aware of that these shifts are coming. The pickup market, Lee, my first car payment was on a 1990 Corsica. That doesn't surprise me. We see a lot of these younger kids, the 80s and 90s pickups. Robert still loves his 89 GT convertible. Great cars. The Fox body Mustangs. But, we need to be aware of that. This market is shifting. It is changing. We need to be aware of that so we can welcome this younger generation in. A lot of people say these kids don't like cars, and that's a bunch of crap. There's a lot of kids that love cars. That's right, Classic Ride Society. 90s trucks are starting to go nuts. Old School saw a red Dodge Shadow today. Once again, they made a lot of plain Shadows. They also made the Shelbys. And they also made some turbo Shadows too, I believe. So, and just a handful of those cars out there, something else to think about in the future. But, we've got to be aware of that. We've got to pay attention to that. Jim, we had a new Corsica hatchback, which it was a great car. There again, and we talk about this stuff. We look at this stuff, the Corsicas, the Cavaliers, and how most people would shun that stuff and say, who's going to ever want it? But just look at the memories that just our small group, just in the last 5 minutes, the memories that have come pouring out with the small group we've got on here tonight just by talking about Corsicas and Cavaliers and things like that. So that's where things are going. It's shifting. Some people don't like it. I understand that. But it is shifting. It is changing. And anybody that says kids don't like cars is wrong. But we need to be very aware of that, and we need to make very sure that we are welcoming them into the hobby, even though it's different stuff. Because, a lot of us remember when a lot of this stuff was new. Ken, the Beretta with a 3.8 V6, yep. Robert says, hit the like button. Definitely appreciate that. Appreciate you guys hanging out and checking out what we've got going on. But like I said, this stuff from the 80s, 90s, I like it. I remember it. Just like when we got to the 92 Camaro poster, there's a 92 Z28 convertible sitting at the other end of the shop. One of 1,251 cars built. And so I'm going to keep the 92 Camaro posters because I've got that car sitting down there. Great point, Old School. Some are rebelling against modern cars, so they want something old. That's a great point. I'm super glad you brought that up because there is a lot of truth to that. Because they don't like electric cars and things like that. So that's a great point, Old School, that they do like it even because of that. So definitely something to think about there. So getting this stuff from the 80s and 90s, I like it. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Even though it's not super old stuff, I still think it's cool, and I think it has an important part in our hobby and where it is heading. So great point also, Classic Ride Society, all-wheel drive Eagle Talon. I actually drove one of those for a while. When I first started with Chrysler, one of my first assignments with Chrysler was in the Minneapolis zone. And I actually had an all-wheel drive Talon for several weeks while I was up there working. That was right after I started with Chrysler. Old School likes the 2000-ish era as well. So there again, so much cool stuff out there that is being overlooked. I strongly encourage you guys, everything we've been talking about, keep your eyes peeled for some of that stuff. If it means something to you, Now's the time to keep your eyes peeled and try to get a good example of it. Pick up the memorabilia stuff. Keep an eye open for it just like I'm doing, because there is a lot of great stuff there in that era, even though it's been kind of overshadowed. So anyway, that's what I've got for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you swinging by, hanging out, checking out what we've got going on. As always, if you have any specific questions about vehicles or parts, just give me a call, 620-786-4428, and I can get a list from you and see what if I've got anything here to help you out. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate the kind words. Appreciate the support popping up right now. Glad you guys stopped by, hung out for a while. Lots of stuff going on. I went over on that 25 car deal today and wrote a check for that. So starting on that deal, that's where that 70s car come from today. Got to get a lot of hauling out of there. Lots of new inventory coming up. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. I love you guys being here. So lots of things going on, lots of things happening, lots of new inventory to come. I actually shot a couple of videos over there today before we moved anything. They did have an excavator in there cleaning up scrap iron, but I did get some of the cars shot in as found condition, so we're going to be putting some of those videos out, as well as the other new videos I've got, or the other new inventory videos that I've already got shot from last week. So stay tuned, lots of stuff coming up. Appreciate the kind words, appreciate you guys' support. Thanks for being here tonight. We will see you tomorrow night on with some more new inventory. Probably going to squeeze a bonus video in Thursday night too, because I've got so much stuff stacking up on content-wise. And then definitely hope to see you all again Sunday evening, 7 o'clock, Sunday night live chat. We'll have a lot of cool stuff to talk about then, including a little bit more on the RPM Act and some things like that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate you swinging by, spending a few minutes here tonight, and we will see you soon on the next video.